Welcome to the Voice of the Citizen. I'm your host, Harjot Singh. We are less than 4 weeks away from a local elections, and we have a very impressive candidate today, Ms. Karen Bhatia, who's running for Nassau County Legislature, District 18. Karen, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Karen, for our listeners and the viewers, I would ask you first to tell us about yourself.
Sure. As mentioned, I'm running for Nassau County Legislator in District 18. My background is I'm an attorney, I'm an educator, and I've been working in the tech sector. Specifically, as an attorney, I've been helping companies start and grow, raise capital. And my area is primarily around economic development and innovation. In addition to being an attorney, I previously led strategy at the New York City Economic Development Corporation, focused on emerging technologies and sectors, and thinking about how do we educate our workforce, how do we think about jobs of the future, how do we support entrepreneurs, and in addition to that, how do we think about innovations in public service. I currently teach for Stanford University, but here in New York, where students come from California to New York for a quarter, and I teach them about business innovation and economic development. So my area of expertise is around the confluence of economic development, supporting businesses, innovation, technology, and ways in which that could be used as tools for growth and for solving some of the biggest challenges that we have, whether it's around affordability, whether it's around infrastructure, safety. How do we get all of our different members of society and our different levels of expertise to come together and innovate around some of the biggest challenges we have?
Karen, what an impressive resume. I would really wonder, why would somebody not want to have somebody like you to make policy for them, to represent them?
Thank you so much.
Karen, you are running in a district which is pretty affluent, which is one of the most educated districts in the country probably, which has one of the lowest crime rates. So it has done well for itself. So I would ask you, when you are running for a place like this, is your campaign that you are a guardrail in preserving what the district has already achieved? Or you think it's not as rosy as it looks, or there are difficulties coming in the future, which needs some innovative thinking, which maintains what we have at the moment?
So it's a little bit of both, Harjot. Mm-hmm. From the perspective of, in terms of maintenance, people who live in District 18, it's primarily the North Shore of Nassau County. So these are the areas of Roslyn Heights, Roslyn, East Hills, Old Westbury, the Brookvilles, Muttontown, large part of Syosset and Woodbury, and then Oyster Bay, Bayville, Locust Valley, Laurel Hollow, Center Island, Mill Neck, all areas in the North Shore. So as you mentioned, it's a pretty well-to-do, well-educated district. People here, in terms of maintenance, we want to maintain our suburban way of life. We want to make sure that we're preserving our green spaces, our peace, our beautiful parks, our shores, not have tremendous overdevelopment. I think that's why people come here. And in terms of also preservation, we have some of the best school districts, not only in Long Island, but also in the state as well as in the country. We've just seen when it comes to a number of the schools, whether it's the Roslyn School District, we're performing incredibly well. And so in terms of maintenance, when it comes to some of these features, we want to make sure that we are preserving our way of life here that makes Nassau County, particularly this district, so unique and so special to our communities. We want to make sure that our families are able to thrive here and do well here as well. But I would add that in terms of going further and thinking about change that needs to happen, there are some very fundamental issues that we do need to address, mm-hmm. and that we have been behind in kind of doing so, paying attention to some of these issues. And this is where my platform stands. There are some areas, and this is what I call my vision of what I want to work on and do within the district itself. I call this vision AIM. These are 3 buckets of priorities. The first one is A, affordability. The second, I, is infrastructure. And the third, M, is modernization. And these 3 buckets of priorities are really based on input that I've received from a number of the meet and greets and discussions that I've had with community members throughout the district. I have been going around doing these coffees with Karen since I decided to run to get input. And these are the priority areas that members of the community have identified.
We will talk about them individually. The first thing you say is affordability. Housing is a huge issue in whole of Long Island, not just Nassau. And the issue is this. People who have lived all their lives there, at certain stage, I'm talking about seniors right now, let's say they want to downsize. It has become so difficult for them to find something in their own locality, right? So it's a very difficult ask for them to either retain those houses or go somewhere else, outside where they have lived. Number 2, kids who enter the new workforce. They have lived with their parents. They've gone to schools here. They love these areas. They want to stay here, but they can't afford. Rents are high. Buying is difficult. Buying is too expensive. That becomes prohibitive for them. And there is another third aspect, which we would talk when we talk more about business, is inviting talent. It's difficult for people to come and buy things here. If we want talent in our local industries here, they have to come and buy or live somewhere. And it's very difficult to afford. So we will talk about these individually, but here's the first thing I want to ask. And I ask this to every candidate on Long Island. We all have a vision for a place or for whatever we deal with. Historically, Long Island could be seen as a bedroom community where lots of people were traveling to city, working there, and come home, have a suburban life, children going to school and everything. Now it is changing in a way that we have very robust local economies as well. Do you, as an individual, as a candidate, as a policymaker, still see our communities as bedroom communities, or you think they should be self-sufficient, supporting their workforce from within?
So I think that the reality is it's a combination of both. We have a lot of members of our community that do commute into the city, depending on what your industry is, depending on what your employer is. And of course, we do have a lot of people who are doing hybrid work. So they're partially working at home and commuting into the city some of the time. But there are robust industries that are growing here. And I would say one of them that we know that a lot of people in our community are very well involved in is healthcare, the healthcare space. We have a lot of people who are doctors, who are administrators, and we see that the healthcare system across Long Island in general, particularly Nassau County, has been growing tremendously. So I think that there's an opportunity for us to focus on local economy and local industries and areas in which we could support further growth, and especially of a number of our professionals who are currently based here so that they can work here as well. So I think the healthcare aspect is one of them, but I think that there are more opportunities too. And what I mean by that is, I think you hit the nail on the head, Harjot, when you were talking about a lot of our young people who are educated in some of the best public schools that we have, who are here, they'll go away to college, and then 2 things happen. Number 1, they have a difficulty being able to come home and find a place to live, whether they're renting or they're going to buy when they have their first job. So if they do come home, they're living in their parents' house. And they find that to be difficult. One of the first conversations I had going around my community in Roslyn Heights when I was getting signatures for the petition to get on the ballot, one young man, probably in his late 20s, he wouldn't sign my petition until he asked me this question. He said, listen, I'm a pharmacist. I can't afford to move out of my parents' house. What are you going to do about it? Young professional and educated here, But the affordability aspect is a huge issue.
Yeah, he's not alone. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I do think that we have to figure out a concerted plan in which we are supporting our professionals to have jobs here, but also to be able to have a supply of homes for our young professionals to be able to come home and to be part of that economic growth that we do have here. So I think that's a big part. It's both. We have to think about strategies to grow our economy here in Long Island as well.
So let me ask you, do you have any plan for that affordability, for that housing?
So I think that what you were talking about, both looking at our seniors as well as our young people, that needs to be addressed. I had a conversation with one of our mayors in one of our villages where we were talking about the need to increase supply of 55 and over types of housing. Because you do have families who have a huge house, 5-bedroom house. They don't have kids anymore. They do want to downsize because, it's hard to maintain, but there's no supply out there. And it's a huge financial burden for them to sell their property. And at the same time, there's really nothing that they could buy that's even remotely comparable. And so if there is that need that's out there, there's a huge mismatch because the greatest housing supply that we have that's being built right now is luxury housing, which there isn't a need for. So we need to figure out ways to have policies to help facilitate this 55 and older type of housing supply. The second one that I would mention is for our young people, for our kids who are here. Help our families stay together. Help them come back home, where they're close to their parents, they're close to their grandparents who are able to downsize and live in these 55 and over facilities and kind of complexes. But, having smart growth and smart development, perhaps around transit hubs where there already is the infrastructure that exists there for transportation, for, kind of a livelier downtown area where there's the kind of amenities that younger people would want, whether it's restaurants or activities. Thinking about how do we help develop those areas, whether we think about ways in which Mineola has developed like that. We think about ways in which Farmingdale has also developed like that. This development was done very carefully so that there isn't overdevelopment. There's already infrastructure that's there that's being built upon as well. And that kind of development also helps to raise property prices in the surrounding community too, because it becomes an area in which you have a walkable downtown and you have facilities and areas in which people want to be a part of and they're able to enjoy too. So there are ways in which we could maintain our suburban way of life, but also be able to keep our families together. Grandma and grandpa have opportunities to have increased housing supply so that they can downsize. We can also have our young people come back home and be able to afford housing and to be able to be working in our industries that are growing here as well. So there's ways in which if we think outside the box and ways in which we also work across party lines to solve these issues that we all have, we're going to be able to support our communities and support our families.
I was looking at your platform and you mentioned one of your aims is lowering the cost of living. And you suggest re-looking at the property tax assessment system. Can you throw some light on that?
Yes, absolutely. So we know that every single year, families have to grieve their property assessments. And, over the course, there have been studies that have reported that over the course of the past 10 years, this has resulted in about $500 million of funding that has gone to these property tax grievance firms. And so oftentimes when people grieve their taxes, they go to these firms in order to get help in order to do so. So it's kind of a cottage industry that has been set up because of this broken assessment system. So not only is it money coming out of your pocket, because if you are able to save money from grieving your taxes, about 50% of the money that you're saving goes to one of these grievance firms if you hire them. But it's also the administrative burden of every year having to grieve your taxes, whether you hire someone or whether you do it yourself. My question is, why can't government get this right in the first place? Why can't we get proper assessments and have a system that continuously does this on an ongoing basis? Now, this is a very challenging task, and I don't pretend to say that I have all the answers, but I don't think that this is an issue that can be continued to be kicked down the road the way that it has been over the course of several years now. When we're saying that we're freezing the assessment rolls and we're freezing property taxes, we're not really doing that. We're not doing a justice to our communities because the numbers that we have, the assessments that we have are erroneous, and people have to continuously grieve on a regular basis. And so what I'm committed to doing is trying to get working on that.
Long Island is known for not being updated with the latest technologies. That's something you speak about as well in your platform. You say modernizing county government. Is there something you want to tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm not talking about even the most sophisticated of technologies. If you just go to the local county legislature's website right now, it's very difficult to navigate. If you are trying to find out what legislative district you are in Nassau County for the November election, you would have a very difficult time trying to figure that out. And the reason is, and this is just one example in terms of modernizing government, there isn't a lot of transparency around information that's readily available. So making even just our basic websites more functional, have more information so people are able to easily navigate, that's just the most basic functionalities that we need. But then when it comes to thinking about ways in which you transact with the county as well, in the private sector, we have every kind of technology that you can imagine, whether it's artificial intelligence and generative AI, whether it's sensors. But when we're dealing with the county as well and interacting with the county, there's a lot of lack of efficiency. There's a lot of bureaucracy, administration. Nothing is streamlined. Processes are not streamlined. And whether it's integrating technology or just cutting a lot of the administration paperwork, we need to streamline our processes to make sure that, number one, they're efficient. Number two, they're transparent. Number three, they're cost effective. And number four, they're working for the people. And so these are some examples of ways in which we can decrease a lot of the administrative burdens that our residents have to face on a regular basis, and ways in which we could kind of streamline government and also cut waste. That's another way in which we're actually trying to deal with affordability issues.
That's why I said at the top of the program, I don't know why would a constituent not want somebody like you with all the experiences and the cutting edge technologies that you've taught about and deal with on a daily basis. We want those efficiencies in our government. And being a resident, I can testify to this fact that our town governments and our local governments are way behind where they should be.
Absolutely.
You have spoken on your platform about small business. Everyone does that. We all want, a small business to do well. Can you tell us what is it that you have in your mind to promote the interest of small business in your district?
Absolutely. I think there are a number of different aspects. First is kind of similar to what I've been doing, going around the district and talking to residents about their biggest priorities. Similarly, I want to have kind of similar listening sessions with our small businesses across the district as well. Some of the input that I've gotten so far are, number one, a lot of the administrative burdens that they have, whether it's any kind of filings that they have to do, whether it's, working with the towns, working with the counties, the administrative burdens are very high. And so trying to streamline that process, whether it's getting permits, licenses, trying to make it as efficient as possible and as timely as possible, that's one of the big issues that our businesses have. The second one is actually hiring, being able to make sure that they have a pipeline of qualified employees, whether it's internal people within the community that they're able to hire, but also if there are people who are going to be coming in external from other areas too, making sure that there's adequate transportation. So that's an important aspect, is really pipeline of qualified workers. So it could be training, it could be transportation, be thinking about also if we want people who are here locally, making sure that there is kind of adequate ways in which they can be a part of the community too. So those are two of the areas that I've heard from a number of our community members and small businesses about ways in which there are important supports that they need to thrive here in Nassau County.
Karen, education is a big fact in Nassau County. We do very well with our public schools and even at the collegiate level. We have some great institutions. We hear something about Nassau County Community College that it has been losing its funding. Is there something? Can you throw some light on this issue?
So I have spoken to the faculty, the teachers at the Nassau Community College, and I actually was just notified that I was endorsed by them this past Friday. And getting further information about what's happening at the community college is imperative. It's very important because these community colleges, this particular Nassau Community College is an incredible force, a tool that we have for economic mobility for our residents. And when it comes to funding, I know that the funding comes from three primary areas. A third of it is from the county, a third is from the state, and a third is from tuition from the students themselves. And so my understanding in terms of the budget is that there hasn't been any kind of cuts, but there has been a reallocation of where the funding is going. And so I know that there have been consolidation of various departments. There have been the cutting of a lot of different types of classes. There's been significant cuts in professors that they have as well, and the kind of the resources for students who need supplementary types of supports. Labs have been also cut. But the concern is that there have been an increase in the administrative level types of positions. And so one of my big goals in, hopefully as it works out in being elected as a legislator, is to really work closely with the faculty as well as the administration to make sure that Nassau County is serving its residents as effectively as possible, especially in areas that are growing areas. So when we think about nursing programs, cybersecurity programs, jobs that are accessible but have upwards trajectory and where there's a tremendous need to fill those types of jobs, making sure that we have adequate programs and supports professors, labs, supplemental teaching and mentors and tutors in these areas, because this could be an incredible opportunity. And again, going back to upward mobility for a number of our students. So this is an area in which I want to help facilitate across the administration and the faculty to help see what can we do to make sure that we're serving our students, our young people, our adults in this critical institution.
Nassau County might be in market to get encouragement in the fields of research when it comes to semiconductors and AI. We don't have any fabricators, I understand, but there is research in the semiconductors industry in Nassau County. Is that right?
I don't have specific information around semiconductors in particular, but I know that we have incredible institutions that are here, and figuring out ways in which we could actually grow upon those industries. So I know that New York State had been investing pretty heavily in, chips manufacturing in different parts of the state. So thinking about ways in which that research can be implemented and actually kind of converted into manufacturing, that would be a tremendous opportunity for us here.
You spoke of small business. One thing that we've observed is it's not cheap to start a small business in Nassau County. And I believe one of the Nassau County legislators has proposed something to slash down those fees as well. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I know that Seth Koslow, who's a current legislator who's running for county executive, one of the areas that he focuses on is cutting fees to try to make things more affordable for our residents in Nassau County. And one of the aspects of the fees is cutting down on permits, licenses that are associated with businesses. And this is what I was talking about as well when it comes to supporting our small businesses, making sure that the administration of it is easy, seamless. It's something that is timely, but it's also cost effective. It shouldn't cost a tremendous amount of money to be able to start whatever business that people have. One of the challenges that we have in Nassau County is whether it comes to business fees, whether it comes to red light camera fees, whether it comes to fees to record your mortgage or to record your deed, the fees associated with interacting with the county has been very high, and it's been higher compared to Suffolk County as well as New York City. And so in some of those instances, when it comes to the red light camera fees, when it comes to fees recording any kind of transactions with the county as well, these fees have been taken to court. And in both instances, it's been viewed as these fees being excessive. And in the case of, some of those fees, they've been deemed to be unconstitutional taxes. It's a way in which the county government has been generating revenue based on these fees, which is they're not allowed to do so based on New York state law. And so that's another aspect when it comes to affordability, is making sure that our residents aren't paying excessive fees to live here.
Karen, you've had such a rich career as a lawyer, as an educator. You taught at Stanford as a policy maker. I would ask you, what's the motivation for running for this office at this stage?
So the motivation is, I see right now there's so much division within our community. And this is the larger Nassau County community. This is within the district. And whether that division is based on politics, political affiliation, whether it's based on religion, whether it's based on ethnic background, I think that we can do something about that. And I think that we need to do something about that. It's an imperative. And so local office, I think, is a way in which we can build those bridges, going door to door, neighbor to neighbor, hearing our concerns and seeing how much we actually do have in common. And what I mean by that is, the three priority areas that I mentioned around affordability, infrastructure, and modernizing government. When you talk to people across all the variety of political backgrounds, religious backgrounds, et cetera, kind of all the things that we're highlighting that divide us, there's so much more that we have in common, and that's focused on our community. It's focused on how do we make sure we continue having good schools, we have opportunities, we keep our families together so that our seniors are able to continue living here, our young people are able to come back and afford living here. How do we think about making sure that this county that's been, deemed to be a very safe county maintains that safety in light of a detective shortage that we're facing? These are areas that are of concern to all of us across the board. And what I want to do is make sure that this is an opportunity for us to come together as a community and to see how do we solve these issues constructively. These are not partisan issues. These are issues that affect our families. And that's what I want to focus on. And that's why I think the time is now to focus on these issues and really bring innovation into play. Let's try new things. What we've been doing so far with kicking the can down the road with some of these fundamental issues, it's not working. We need to work together, and we need to try new approaches as well. That's what I'm committed to doing, and I want to work across the board to get things done.
Yeah, we as a nation right now, we complain that there's too much division. In our local communities, we see this division, and then it's incumbent upon us as citizens to bring forth, to support, to elect those candidates who speak of middle of the road, whether it's economic policy, social policy, whatever. It's our job. It's our job to find out what is it that they're saying, what is it that they stand for, and then come out and vote in our local elections, not just for the presidential election in 4 years, but our local elections, which are very important. As we always say, they have more immediate effect on our lives. Is that right, Karen?
Absolutely. Our local government is the one that affects our daily lives.
Yeah.
And they are, whether it's our streets, our roads, whether it's our water, whether it's our police, whether it's our budget, our schools, across the board, this is your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we vote in these local elections. This one is on November 4th. And I also think it's incumbent on us to think about how do we be solutions-oriented. I think that nationally, there's this rhetoric, and it's come down to a very local level of these divisions and pointing fingers, Well, let's take responsibility and all think towards how do we solve these issues that we face collectively? How do we solve them together? What are potential solutions? And let's work together to do that. So our local government is really where it all starts.
Karen, it's been a pleasure talking to you. At the end, I will ask you to tell us yourself, why do you think you're the best candidate for the position you're seeking?
Thank you, Harjot. It's really been a pleasure. I come from the perspective of what my slogan is, which is serving people, not politics. I'm not here to focus on any agenda other than bringing our community together across the board and trying to address the priorities that we all have. And so I want to bring a mindset of togetherness. I want to bring a mindset of innovation and bringing my experience in policy, in economic development, in solving problems, integrating technology. I want to be able to do that for our community and think of new ways and of addressing these issues. So I hope that people will learn more about my platform. They can go onto my website at www.karenbhatia.com to learn more, to contact me, and to come out to vote on November 4th.
Karen, thank you so much for your time today. We wish you all the very best for your campaign ahead.
Thank you so much.